welcome to Masters of Divinity. I'm your moderator, JP, and I'm here as always with Father Chuck.
Aloha.
And occasional Matt will be here soon. I promise. I think, maybe he should be here. This is what we're talking about today. Was sort of an idea that he and I both came up with that we wanted to talk about. So he should be here. Otherwise, if he's not, he's missing out. And Chuck has a question. Yes, Chuck. I'll field this one. I'll field this one. Chuck.
Yeah. I don't want to potentially jump the gun on what you're doing here, but should we also acknowledge the other member of our recording session today?
Oh, are you talking about Brandon?
Yeah, Brandon, who's all Olin Mills style behind you.
Yeah. We're buds, hanging out, just guys being dudes, taking pictures together. See?
Yeah. He's very stoic and still. I appreciate the fact that he can maintain that level of stillness.
He's a good listener.
He is a good listener. I do notice, though, that on the altar behind him is a little banner that looks kind of like the one, very reminiscent of what I've got behind me.
Oh, yeah? What is that?
Well, I believe that's a sort of orphery that attaches to the back of a coat.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it seems...
That's like a banner.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Well, it's a dilapidated church.
Yeah.
Possibly from the third act, where the crow, Eric Draven, has his final confrontation with what's his Top Dollar, the leader of the gang in Detroit. Yes, Chuck, you have a question?
I've never seen The Crow.
I know that.
I've been aware of it for very, very many years because I too have visited a Hot Topic. But his last name is Draven.
Eric Draven, yes.
Like DeRaven?
Yes.
Like
that is intentional, yes.
DeRaven. Okay, I just wanted to...
In the comic book, he actually does not have a name, so they had to come up with one in the movie. And they came up with Eric... There was going to be Eric D. Raven, but like, no, let's just put D and Raven together, and Draven. Eric Draven.
Hey. And yet nobody will pick up your scripts.
No. What are you talking about, man? Eric Draven is the coolest name in the world.
I mean, I guess when you're 14 and
in
you've seen The Crow, and then it introduces you to the world of goth, and you discover the poetry of Edgar Allan Poe, and when you start reading The Raven, and then it hits you, Crow, Raven, DeRaven. The Crow.
Anyway, so The Crow, check it out. It's I don't know. I actually don't know where it's streaming. I never bothered to check if it's streaming anywhere because I own it. Right over. I'm not going to do it.
Well, and at this point, it would actually look like you pull it out of like magic because of the background.
You should watch it, Chuck. I'd be really interested in your opinion on the movie. I've of course watched it a million times. I don't have to watch it. I could just recount it right now.
I feel like this is one of those. I feel like this is one of those movies that there's no way that I can watch it with an open mind because through osmosis and exposure, like I have already made up my mind what kind of movie it is, and I just don't know that I'll ever be able to go into it pure.
I still think you would enjoy it because there are things that happen in it that I just want to. I mean, just hit some lines. I mean, the dialogue. There are scenes where he quotes Edgar Allan Poe.
Of course he does.
You know? Things like that. It's just... You have to see it. The world has to know Father Chuck's opinion on The Crow. And we're going to do it on this show one day.
Listen, I spent a period of time in my life as like a poser goth. And I don't know. I worry that it's going to bring up things that I tried to bury. Things that very embarrassing about myself. See, I watched The Matrix and decided that I watched The Matrix, and around that time I also discovered The Cure, and so I decided that, you know, wearing lots of black and all of that was going to be a part of my life.
That's amazing.
We didn't have prom at my school. We had a banquet because it was a super Baptist school. Maybe your school was like that too.
Oh yes, yes, yes. We had the junior senior banquet.
Okay, we had a junior senior banquet, but we also had something called the Eagle Banquet, which was like our equivalent of prom, but everybody could go to that.
But more patriotic, I'm assuming.
No, Eagle was our mascot.
Oh, okay, all right.
But it was funny. It was always at the what is it? The Rosen Hotel there in Orlando on I Drive, and with his positioning makes it seem like you're really interested in my story too. This is very, I like it. But no, so it was a big deal. Emory Rosen Hotel. Other schools had their proms right across from us, so we could watch people like actually dancing and enjoying themselves, and we had this stupid banquet. Anyway, long story short, it was kind of like the Oscars. People like dressed up, right? That was the only draw, as an opportunity to dress up. So I went one year. Black suit, black dress shirt, black silk tie, black rimmed glasses with blue lenses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's
so you know there's that little piece inside of me, you know.
If you watch Chuck, if you watch The Crow, specifically for our show, and we do an episode on The Crow, I will host it in full Crow regalia.
Oh, now
I'll do it. I'll shave the beard. I'll dye my hair. I'll put on the makeup.
Oh, that's so tempting. But there's actually a part of me that would rather you dress like you did when you were into The Crow.
Well, that's
dressing like The Crow.
Nothing would go on my face. That is the thing. Like, it would just be like an Audio Slave shirt with spiked bracelets and khakis. I didn't really go all out. Like, you have to understand, I was still living with my parents when I was into The Crow. So, like, if I dressed like how I watched The Crow, that would probably have been disowned. So I didn't really, you know.
Okay.
But I'll do it. I will.
Okay, and I will consider it now.
Okay. All right.
Maybe I will watch The Crow as part of like our Halloween theme episode.
Ooh, that'd be cool. And then I could be that one guy who shows up dressed as the Crow at the Halloween party.
Which, by the way, reminds me of that great photo of the woman who showed up at the Halloween party dressed up as the Babadook, and no one else was dressed up.
Yeah.
It's a great photo.
That is good. Okay. All right. I wish we could talk more about The Crow, but we can't. We actually do have a topic.
EDM, right? We're talking about EDM.
I'll try good dance music. Okay, so I guess the best way to sort of introduce this topic is to, you know, it's kind of like two stories. There's my side of it and Matt's side of it, and how it just sort of converged. And I'll just get into it. I learned recently about what's known as, on the internet, as EDC. And EDC stands for Everyday Carry. And I guess it's mostly centered around communities online who share what they carry with them on their person every day. And so it's what's interesting about it is that, like, I think, like, I actually found the subreddit years ago. But years ago, it was very different. It was just like a way to kind of see, like, a window into people's lives. You know, like, oh, this person is a journalist, so what do they carry? What's in their pocket? And you see, like, a press pass or something, and, like, a camera, and, you know, a notepad, whatever. I don't know. I'm like describing, like, a 1940s, like, Clark Kent, like, like, he has a hat with this, has his press on it, you know. And you know, different occupations and stuff. But what's interesting about it is that, like, it's evolved so much over the years, and it's sort of clashed with other, we'll say, demographics instead of subcultures. That there's sort of like a uniform to EDC now. And what these people do is they go on Reddit and they take out the stuff that's in their pockets. Supposedly, I'm pretty sure most of this is like pre-planned, for internet points. They kind of, spread them out in sort of a minimalist, kind of very photogenic way. Like, you've got your objects all lined up, and you take a picture and you share it. What's interesting is that, like, from what used to be a very diverse set of like things you find in people's pockets has become very homogenous, and that it consists of these days a knife, usually a folder knife, a flashlight, like a little flashlight, and a wallet, because it's usually men doing this, and sometimes, not often, a leatherman. Yeah,
I like have you seen the Leatherman bracelet?
I have. And it looks really uncomfortable. It looks like a bike chain.
Yeah.
Isn't that what it's called? The Leatherman chain or something?
Yeah, it's a cool idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. Probably better for like if you're like a welder or something. Like if you're, if you like climb skyscrapers for a living or whatever.
It doesn't really work if you're a priest.
No, probably not.
Could have blessed someone, like jab their eye out with like a screwdriver.
Comes in handy in a fight, probably. But what's interesting is kind of how I got into this recently is that because of the pandemic, I felt very unprepared when it happened, and I definitely went tried to go shopping looking for supplies, and there was like no supplies anywhere. I couldn't find hand sanitizer. I couldn't find all kinds of disinfectant sprays and stuff that I really needed. Masks, forget about it. And once that had happened, I started looking into like the prepping community, which was a big mistake.
Yeah.
I was interested at first, but I started watching like Doomsday Preppers on Netflix because there's episodes of it on it there, and I really didn't like it. Not just because they're crazy, which they are, but also I found that it's very. They don't seem to be really concerned about actually being prepared for anything. I'm sure they've convinced themselves of that, but it's just another part of consumer culture, right? Like, here's a community I can be a part of, and if I buy all this stuff, I'll be this person in that community, and I can show it off and get social capital for it, right?
Right.
And also, I didn't like, and this is the leftist in me, that the prepping community is all about like taking care of me and mine in a disaster or something goes south. It's not about like helping your community or the people around you. And you can only let people inside if like they have something that they can do for you. And that's just like I'm ideologically opposed to that kind of thinking.
Well, I mean, it's basically what's his face from Fury Road.
Oh, right. Immortan Joe?
Yeah. It's basically Immortan Joe, right? Because he controls water supply, and so therefore he only doles it out when you've got something to benefit him.
Exactly. And so I kind of just stopped looking at it, but I was also kind of stuck sort of with the channels that they use to kind of stock up. And these things kind of, I'm talking like YouTube channels, places on Reddit, blogs and websites and stuff where they sell all these supplies.
Jim Baker. Yeah.
Jim Baker's. Yeah. That's a good, with his buckets, his survival buckets, which can be used to store food, can be used as a stool to sit on, and as toilets. Because that's what we need. That is what we need. It's so funny. That's exactly how Jim Baker advertises them on his show, by the way. He does mention, you can poop in these, man. That's great. But that's how I got more into like EDC. Like I kind of started to think like I need to be more prepared. I need a bunch of stuff to be a person. And well, I'm kind of struggling with it a little bit, but at the same time I do like when I go out now because of the pandemic, I have a lot of things I need with me, like my mask. I carry hand sanitizer and a bunch of other stuff that I just kind of get tired of carrying in my pockets. I don't like pockets anymore because I feel like I'm just going to lose everything. So now I use my Indiana Jones bag to carry stuff in.
Well, what it comes down to is silhouette, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know, you want to, you don't, it's not a good silhouette to have like bulky stuff sticking out,
Yeah.
right?
And it's also
then,
like
like,
your pants are falling down because of it, you know, it's
yeah, like the cargo pants, right? Like, you know, we all did the cargo shorts, cargo pants thing for a while, but right when you put stuff in your cargo pants, like it just pulls them down.
right. Yeah. But it's I don't know. I don't hate it. There are things I see in it where I'm like, I don't think I should be doing that because I feel like I feel very consumerist, if that makes any sense. Like very, like, oh, I need things. I need materials to be happy. But at the same time, like, I do need some things. You know, like we live in a weird time now where it's like I carry around a stylus when I go shopping if I'm shopping with a card. So I don't have to touch the touch screens and stuff. And that's what we were going to talk about. And the funny thing is, and it's actually funny, we came up while we were talking about this episode a few days ago. We came up with a name for the EDC crowd, which is Pocket Preppers. Which, I mean, that might be the name of this episode, Pocket Preppers. Because it's like, it's so weird. Like, what? It's so strange when you look. You go, seriously, go to that subreddit. It's just r/EDC, and it's just photos and photos and photos of like knife, wallet, flashlight. Like, it doesn't matter what job it is, knife, wallet, flashlight. But I want a knife, wallet, flashlight combo. I do. I have an Amazon list just full of knives. And people are gonna think like you're crazy, and I'm like, no, I just really like these knives. They all have different options.
What are you going to use it for?
I don't know. Boxes. You can open boxes with it. Hey man, you never
it's
know.
handy, you know. I mean, when I hooked that soft shell turtle that one time, it would have been really helpful to have had that to cut the line off of it instead
There you
of.
go. And see, you're a surfer. You're a surfer. You can strap a knife to your thigh. You know, like to your shin, like those Navy SEALs used to do, right? No?
I mean, if I want to get, well, that's actually an interesting question. Like nobody would do that, but like if I were to get dropped in on, like would anybody actually like? Because that's normally like what people do when you look like a kook out in the water. Like we're just not gonna take you seriously and drop in on you. But do they drop in on the guy with the dive knife on his leg? I don't know. I have a dive knife.
There you go. Do it. Is it made by Mora by any chance?
I don't know. I got it when I took scuba diving lessons because they told me that I had to have one because it's a helpful tool while you're scuba diving.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting about this story is that I got really into it. I became really into all the communities and all of like I'm an EDC expert at this point. Okay. And it's both because it's kind of funny and also because there's some cool stuff I like that I probably want. And hey, you know what? Living in a country, you do need a knife. I can't tell you what you're going to need it for, but there have been moments where it's like, wow, I really need a knife right now. Or like a screwdriver. Those are two things I've always needed that I just never have on me. But what's interesting about it is I found out there's also this bag that I really want called a commuter pack. And it's made by an independent company that gets all their funding through crowdfunding on Indiegogo. And I was talking to Matt one day. I don't know how it came up, but I was telling him about like how I kind of ran to this EDC community and telling him about these knives and stuff. And he's like, yeah. And I was telling him how like how I need a bag now to carry things whenever I go out because of the pandemic. And he's like, yeah, there's this bag I really want called the commuter pack. And I was like, oh my gosh, from Funk Street Outfitters? He's like, yeah. How'd you hear about that? I'm like, oh, I've been following progress for months. And apparently Matt has been like waiting for this bag to come out for like 2 years. And like I just found out about it. And then we started talking about like all the gear we want and have. Well, Matt has more gear than me, of course, because he has like a stable life. I don't. All my EDC gear is like junk. But yeah. So
but think about like stuff that you like. a leatherman and things like that, knives, is it useful for you, like for trimming leaves and stems and right?
Oh, well, no, I actually have a very specific kind of I call them nippers.
You have a very specific set of tools.
I do. Yeah, I mean, the blade has to be slightly curved and they have to be sort of needle pointed, and yeah, I can't use a Leatherman.
Right, they use those same kinds of things in like aquaculture, like with aquariums
Bonsai and stuff.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually, there actually are bonsai tools I want to start using instead of the ones I use now because they seem way more comfortable and way more precise.
Mm-hmm. See, like I've been saying for years, Japanese things are just better.
They are, and like I've gone to YouTube channels where people cut weed and they use like these really cool like Japanese scissors. Where They have like big loops on them and stuff, and they're like,
oh yeah,
curved. I need one of those totally
because they think things through.
Oh, I know.
Like, so this pencil, this is a Kurutoga
Yeah.
pencil. It's a great writing utensil because on its point, if you can look real closely in the mechanics there, there's like, let's see if I can get this. I'm trying to get it. There we go. If you look, there's like these little grooves in there. And what it does is as you write, it spins and it gradually lengthens the lead so that every time you press down and write, it lengthens the lead just a little bit so you never have too much or too little lead.
That's amazing. I need it.
Yeah, it's from Unival. I got it. Well, we on Amazon Prime is a great little show called Prime Japan.
Yeah.
There's an episode on Japanese design, and they showed this pencil, and Kana and I were like, we have to get this. And so we kind of tracked them down and ordered them. And then now here in Hawaii, you can buy them at like various Japanese office supply stores that we have here. But yeah, it's a great tool.
That's awesome. I want one.
You can also get them with like Studio Ghibli characters on them now.
Ooh, nice. Teaser.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's basically my story and like how I got into EDC and how I've reined it in. Like I used to spend like an hour just researching pins. Like an hour looking into flashlights because like I do have particular.
This is the only pin you ever need.
I know, but like the Fisher Space pins are pretty cool too, right? Like you know what those are?
No.
Fisher Space pins. They're modeled on the pins the astronauts take into space.
Oh yeah, you write upside down.
Yeah, that's cool.
There's a whole Seinfeld episode about that.
There is. I think that's how I heard about it.
No, I am an absolute purist when it comes to the Pilot G2. Is the only pen worth anything. Though I made a mistake, and this is the fine. I like the extra fine, the .68. This is the 05. But it's a versatile pen. Good for writing, good for drawing. Love it.
I have a pen gear. Well, it's because of Eric Draven. I have a pen gear, which I think is supposed to be in the style of a Pilot G2 because it's...
Yeah, it is. It's sort of the Rose Art version of it, yeah.
Pretty much. Like I said, I'm very poor. But yeah, like I said, I've reined it in since then. But what's kind of fascinating to me about it is that, like, all this stuff, like, I definitely now have spreadsheets. Things I want to buy. But what's fascinating it's got a little guy.
Do you know what this is?
Is that a laser pointer?
I found this like in my desk at my last church, and I've hung on to it because it's so darn cool. So it lights up.
Yeah. Ooh,
but look at this. So like a Barbasol can here. You got Dodson here showing you how it works.
I'm gonna start squealing.
Open it up, and it comes loaded with screwdriver bits.
That's amazing.
That fit into the tip that you can also light up. But I have to screw the thing back on. But they all store in the little holes in the back there.
It's awesome.
And it's an awesome little... I know we're not really talking about the meaning of EDC. We're just showing off products now.
Well, I know, and I'm doing it now too. This is my stylus that I carry with me when I go to grocery stores and stuff, so that I don't touch the credit card machines.
Right.
Gross.
Use your knuckle. Do they not clean them in Oklahoma?
I mean, probably, but I'm not taking any chances.
Oh, because here they like go nuts.
I mean, I don't know if you heard the news about Oklahoma. I think I sent you an article about it and how like our governor hid information from us.
Well, that's true.
But this is my stylus. It's got like a little ruler on the side. Has a level right there.
Oh, that's nice.
Of course, it's also a pen that you can twist. And I've had this thing for like 2 years, and I just noticed the other day that on the stylus end, you can unscrew the top. Phillips head.
Oh, there you go.
You can take out the Phillips head. There's a magnet inside, and on the other side,
And then you got a standard.
flathead.
Nice.
Bam. It's pretty
I've
awesome.
I've got my Sensu brush stylus. You know about this thing?
No.
Works on an iPad, so it's this before the Apple Pencil came out, so it's
Okay.
really not. But it's got your standard stylus, but
Ooh.
put it together, and it's got a brush.
Ooh, that's fancy.
And the brush is actually sensitive to the screen, and so you can actually like draw and paint with it.
I'm telling you right now, if you show that to Matt, he's going to buy it right away. Because he does love this. Use the iPad Pro.
Well, but if he has an iPad Pro, he uses the Apple Pencil, which is way better than this thing.
Yeah, but that has a brush. He'd probably be into the brush, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
That's
I get
pretty
that.
cool.
Get the hairs to do their thing. Yeah.
So go ahead. What you were going to say?
Well, I would say, I mean, if eventually, I think we should just probably just own up to the fact that we all do have our own crap to carry, and we can show off stuff. But
Yeah.
But this is a topic I'm fascinated by. About a year and a half ago or so on my Instagram account, I don't know if you saw, I was doing a thing like every Thursday, I was trying to show off theology tools. Because like I'm so fascinated by the tools that people use for their craft, right? Like I love learning about the different lenses that, cinematographers use, and that kind of specialized knowledge. And I love when people share that. I follow just a ton of surfboard shapers and carpenters and stuff on Instagram to learn. And so I thought about, what does a preacher or theological worker use? What are their tools? Like, what are my tools? And so like I started kind of thinking that through. And so, so I have like a bunch of things that I do carry stuff with me every day, but then I have like my tools, and, and I'm very particular about what I use to do the work that I feel called to do. And on top of that, depending on my work as like a priest, like there are things I carry, like when I'm in my black robe in my pockets, there are items that are always in those pockets because I need them, Right. So like, I don't know, it's a fascinating topic. And so like this, like I've never been to the Reddit thread that you're talking about, but it is but I have seen over the years, I remember the trend of people showing like their pocket contents.
Yeah.
And all of that. And that's all part of this thing that just fascinates me about, and it's frustrating that it's now become its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so now it's become homogenized.
Yeah.
Rather than insight into what like different people use for their craft.
And I have a theory for how it became homogenized. And this is where I wish Matt were here, because he would probably back me up. I think that EDC is probably most applicable to people in law enforcement and military. And I think that law enforcement and military, like their EDC is homogenous. Like every cop should probably have the same set of tools. Probably the same for like soldiers and stuff. And the EDC subreddit, there's a lot of cops. There's a lot of cops, a lot of military folk. And I think that's why it became so. And that's another thing where there's also sort of a demographic that's forming around that kind of homogenization, where it's like law enforcement and military with like bro culture on the internet, to where now it's like manly to have a bag with Molly on it. Molly, if you don't know, is like the black straps that you see like on bags and stuff that you can like put pouches on, and like carabiners and things like
Which
that.
makes it Tactical.
Exactly. Or as I like to call it, tactical, which is the which is the consumerist side of tactical. We now have we have tactical belts. We have here's the thing that I hated about looking at flashlights. I don't need a tactical flashlight, and yet they're all tactical flashlights. Like all the good ones, they're all advertised as tactical flashlights with the ridges on them you can use to stab somebody or something. I don't know.
Let's get a mag light.
Yeah, but those are chunky and heavy.
I have a little blue mag light.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe I want a lot of
candle. It's
nice. Oh, there's a lot of flashlights I want. I'll probably get a mag light. I actually would like to get a classic, like a big mag light.
I have that. I have the one that you use for you pulling someone over.
Yeah, like security guards used to carry in the 80s.
Yeah. I've got that one. Yeah.
Nice. But
given to my bishop when I was ordained.
But I think that's an interesting thing that's happened is that now there is sort of a a men's style of having a purse now. When if you saw a dude with a a satchel, you'd be like, oh, a man purse. Now it's oh no, this is my tactical satchel, right?
I've seen a lot of those, yeah.
Yeah. Even though you and I did the satchel before it was became cool to do it. Not to sound like a hipster, which we kind of are, but
yeah, I was definitely a fan of the messenger bag all throughout college. Yeah.
Me too.
And then my bag, which I don't have it here, but the bag that I used all through college was this really old school North Face bag that North Face from the 70s or 80s.
Yeah, sweet.
That I was using. I loved that bag. Yeah, I the thing is where this kind of stuff gets to me is I have a bag fetish.
Yeah.
I love bags.
I'm kind of the same way. I do too.
I'm always, for a while I was always looking for a new bag.
Just a bag for every occasion.
Yeah. And but now I've kind of hit the part in my life where I realize I have all the bags I need.
Yeah.
Because I have a good hiking bag. I have.
What's your hiking bag?
Huh?
What's your hiking bag?
Well, I have a day pack, and then I have my overnight, my overnight pack, hardcore pack. But the one that I bought, the one that I could use for overnight type stuff. It's a fast packing bag, but it's from Osprey. Both of my bags from Osprey.
Okay, Osprey's cool. Yeah.
They make because the vented back is the thing.
You should look into Mystery Ranch bags. Those are really cool.
Okay.
They've been around for as long as Osprey.
Okay, I just love Osprey's design. They're just they seem really thoughtful. But I'll have to check out Mystery Ranch. But yeah, but then my day bag is a yellow Osprey backpack that has both of them have spots for the hydro flask thing, or not hydro flask, for the water bladder, Camelback style thing. We actually bought my yellow one for Disney because we were constantly lugging around water bottles, and I was just like, well, why don't we just get a big 1.5 liter bladder? I'll just carry that in a backpack so we just don't have to carry a bunch of water bottles and deal with water bottles through Disney.
No, that's good. That's good thinking, man.
Yeah,
I would do that, and I like those style of bags. They're nice and slim because Camelback started just selling bags too, and not just water bladder bags,
right?
Full on backpacks, and those are pretty cool too.
Yeah, and Osprey makes their own water bottle now, water bladder.
Really?
Yeah, that's designed to go with their bag, and it's great.
That's cool. See, that's the thing. You and me, we're into bags. We're also into camping and hiking. Mm-hmm. There's some overlap there, right?
Oh yeah. With my camping stuff pretty much stays packed and ready to go at any time, right?
Yeah.
And we bought little Osprey bags for the boys so that they have they carry their own water bottle now, and a few things. And then we're looking into maybe getting the Osprey one for carrying a baby.
Yeah. Nice.
Just because it's the lightest of all of them. We've done a ton of research into all the baby backpacks, and it's the lightest one.
Okay, that's cool. Do you have a bug out bag?
A bug out bag?
Yeah. Do you know what a bug out bag is? Like
a bag that's ready to go in case I need to leave?
Yeah. Or go out into the wilderness and hide from Antifa.
No, I don't have a bug out. I mean, could I assemble one within an hour? Totally.
Yeah. That's cool.
I've never been that kind of paranoid to like keep something ready to go. I mean, maybe I should. I mean, I will say Kana does keep all of our like important paperwork in a carry file folder thing, so that like if there's a fire, we grab it and go, and it's like kept at a place, that kind of thing. But
see, that's the bug out bag thing to me. That's another holdover from prepper culture. To me, it's just another like consumerist. This is my expensive bag with all my expensive products, and I'm in this community, and it allows me to have this amount of social capital. These people will never use these bags.
Right.
What Kana has done, and I recommend everyone listening to do the exact same thing. I have one as well. Like that is actual bug out, right? Like an emergency, like we have to run. Like if you have to go to emergency, you're not going to need like a, I don't know, like a gas mask, probably, right? Like,
right.
I mean, maybe now because of the pandemic, but I don't know. That's just another thing that's part of the EDC prepper kind of crossovers is the bug out bag, and it's so I used to think they were kind of cool, but now it's like it just seems so useless. I don't think you would ever be in a position to ever use any of that. It just seems like a waste of money.
Yeah, well, and it's also it enters into this very interesting psychological place,
right,
and philosophical place because in my experience, the people who have those sorts of things are also very self-proclaimed patriots.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which very much fascinates me, because why are you're so supportive of a government, but you're also ready to like take it on?
Yeah.
It's a very weird thing.
It is, and I did a little research into this, and what we know as this sort of culture of preppers and preparedness used to be known as survivalism.
Right.
And a great movie that makes fun of it and uses it to great comedic and exciting effect is a little movie called Tremors.
Yes.
Because the best character is a survivalist, and like every line of dialogue that comes out of his mouth is hilarious, because it's all about like, because it's Bert, right? He has all the guns. Him and Reba McEntire, they have all the guns and like totally prepared to live out in the middle of nowhere, and they're always talking about like communism and the government and stuff. So it dates back to that like Cold War era paranoia,
right?
When people were buying bomb shelters and stuff.
Yeah, basically like they were afraid of Red Dawn.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you know what else? And I found this out in my research. You know what else popped up around that time? Self-defense culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where people had to learn how to protect themselves, either through martial arts or a concealed weapon.
I never thought about this. I never thought about the like sort of indirect connection between Karate Kid and the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's there.
Mm-hmm. And there were, gun culture is embedded in American society, right? Like, there's always been a time where Americans have owned guns, but the whole culture around owning a gun on your person at all times, it's a fairly new thing.
Right.
And because there was a time where it was like, oh, you could, if you're a farmer, sure. But, like, if you live in New York, or if, like, you live in, like, a suburb, those Ruskies are out there, buddy.
Yeah, there was that time, right, where, I think about, like, my grandfather's generation, where it was just, like, you're a man, you need to own a gun.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you just need to have it in case you
just put it in you buy a shotgun, you put it in the closet, right?
Right.
Double barrel Remington from 1920s, and just, like, leave it in the closet.
Yeah, I was briefly, I guess, an illegal gun owner. I don't know if you remember when we lived together. I had a rifle.
I didn't know that.
It was an antique rifle. It was like,
maybe I did. I just remember.
It's just my grandfather's antique rifle that when my grandmother, or when he, like, around the time my grandmother died, she was like, "Your granddaddy wanted you to have this." I'm like, okay. It didn't fire. Like, it didn't work. Really beautiful woodworking and metalworking on it. Turned out that it wasn't like my grandmother was like, "Oh, this is your granddaddy's childhood rifle. He used to hunt squirrels with this thing." And I'm looking, I'm like, I know that my grandfather came from dirt poverty. There's no way he owned a gun this nice. And it turned out that my grandfather's brother, my Uncle Austin, he was involved in the like after VE in Germany. He went to Berlin, and so he was part of the group of people that were confiscating all the weapons from all the rifles from the German citizenry. And among them was this aristocrat who had this, you know, beautiful, you know, metal worked, you know, intricately carved in the stock rifle. And when they, you know, my grandfather's brother found it and was like, "Oh, my brother chuckle like this," and so he you know, got permission to take it and brought it back to the States, and he just gave it to my grandfather, and my grandfather was sort of like, "Thanks." And I never saw this guy. It was never like proudly displayed in the home or anything until like it did not emerge until after my grandfather died. My grandmother's like, "Here," and I'm like, "Thanks, Nene."
Yeah.
But and then my mom and I got rid of, you know, gave it to a gun collector. It was just sort of like, here, like I don't want to deal with all the, you know, we had to deal with all the, you know, paperwork stuff. But yeah. But yeah, that's a very different culture from what we see today with guns, which is so rooted in this paranoia that, well, let's be honest,
because it's an industry now.
Well, yeah, but you know, I mean, let's be honest. What are they afraid of? They're afraid of people of color. Right. Mm-hmm. Antifa is code for black and brown people.
Well,
taking over,
I mean,
right?
As someone who is embedded on this side of the culture, they will say, "Yeah, we need to protect ourselves from Black Lives Matter protesters because they're going to burn our houses down." Right. But it's Black Lives Matter and Antifa. They're working together in conjunction. Is how they're being perceived.
Of course they are, right? Yeah. But yeah, that's the element within this whole.
But you're right. Yeah, it's dog whistling.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's very weird, and these things all start, like you said, they're starting to kind of connect together. Of, you know, because that's really, you know, when I think of the prepper, the survivalist prepper people, I think of white dudes who are hiding out in the woods afraid of Black America coming for them. Yeah. That's what I associate this with.
Mm-hmm. I mean, essentially, it is that sort of stereotype of, like, you know, the person who wants to live out in the middle of nowhere because they have some John Wayne idealized figure in their heads, even though it is also part of a deep-rooted fear of just a fear of society, the conservative fear, right?
But I wonder too. The other side of this is like the protester culture.
Yeah, and that's the thing I wanted to touch on, because I think the culture is changing because of 2020. Because, I mean, go ahead and say what you want to say.
Well, I'll say, because I went to a Black Lives Matter protest here in Hawaii, and like even I was like thinking about stuff like, because I'd read stuff online about the protest. You know, they're saying things like make your signs out of plywood so that you have like an item to bat tear gas canisters back at. You know, or it's like a shield, right?
Yeah.
And I was thinking about stuff like that, and I was, you know, I almost brought, like, I have a respirator that I use for making surfboards, and I thought about like bringing that in the event of, you know, something going down.
Yeah.
And I had read all this stuff, and there's definitely like this prepper mindset to like the protest movement stuff, to people who are like really into protesting, right? Because they're carrying gas masks, they're carrying umbrellas, they're carrying. You know, again, signs made out of sturdier materials.
Oh, well, yeah, like there's infographics on like what a typical, you know, Hong Kong protester had on them when they were doing their protest.
Right.
That I think a lot of people are starting to model after as well during all
this.
Yeah.
Well, because they're like on they were networking, because their advice and stuff that they were doing wound up communicating with the BLM protesters. Mm-hmm. During the George Floyd protest, there was there was some going back and forth with them. Like that was
I think I've heard of
that. You know, and so there's a very that's a very like, you know, somewhat militaristic mindset, because you're preparing yourself for war. I mean, what happened at St. John's Lafayette, I mean,
right,
every picture looked like a war zone.
Mm-hmm. It's it comes from a sense of destabilization.
Yeah,
because at that point you do have to start relying on yourself and your community around you instead of like Target or what's being marketed to you.
right.
You have to start thinking about like, okay, I'm not going to have someone holding my hand. I need to figure out on my own, like, what am I going to need?
Here's another piece to this that if you allow me to sort of introduce a thought.
Yeah.
Because this was a thought that occurred to me when I was, I participated in the Black Lives Matter protest as a clergy person. That's why I did it.
Yeah.
Right. I wanted to show that the church was there. Found out, by the way, from some evangelicals that I know here, young evangelical couple told me that they were really surprised and glad that I was out, because they went to the protest and they said, we don't know of any pastors from our side of things that participated. And they were like, we didn't, and so I was out in my black dress. Like, I was very publicly a priest at this protest, and got a lot of people who are just very grateful. Like, we're glad you're here. And masks and the whole things that we had to do. But like I said, I really thought about bringing stuff in case things went down. But then I thought, and this was the idea I want to introduce, I thought of, when Jesus sends out the 70, he says, carry no bag, no purse, one pair of sandals, only clothes on your back, right? Don't go basically prepared, basically go into the world, vulnerable.
Really?
And he says, when you go into, and he's not sending them out down the block. He's sending them, to other cities.
Yeah.
And he says, he's sending all throughout Galilee to different cities. They're probably gone for weeks. And he says, when you go into a city, find who's worthy there, and let them put you up, and whatever they offer to feed you, eat it. So there's this element. So it's I guess what's kind of interesting to me about this, why I bring it up, is because, right, a lot of there's a stereotype element, I think, too, that I think is fair to make about some of these more tactical type, pocket prepper type folks, that they probably skew toward the white Protestant Christian side of things.
Yes.
And it's interesting that, because I grew up to church with people like this, so that's why I think that, right. But Jesus very pointedly tells his followers, like, don't prep, right? Like, be spiritually prepared, but don't be so over-reliant on the things of the world in order to get you through this stuff, right? Like, go into the world being vulnerable, willing to accept whatever people are willing to give you, And so I think that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it but kind of going in with nothing on you, you're kind of making yourself more approachable, I think, especially if you're going into more impoverished areas, right?
Right.
Like, I mean, if you're gonna go, let's say you're gonna go to like help a really like a leper colony or something, you're not gonna show up in like your best robes, right, with like a sword.
Right.
You want to come like just what you've got, right? Just to it kind of shows like you're not hiding anything, you're not trying to start anything. And it's almost like the Buddhist monk, right? When you are ordained or whatever it is as a Buddhist monk, whatever the language is for that, the thing they give you is a sign. Not only do you get your robe, your habit, but they give you an empty bowl. Interesting.
And that bowl is for begging, and it symbolizes that whatever's put in the bowl is what you use. So if somebody scoops food and puts it in the bowl, that's the food you eat. If somebody puts money in the bowl, then you use the money to help poor acquire food for yourself or whatever, right? But you survive off of that. So it's like you have your robes and your bowl, and that's it, right? And in Christian culture, the Christianity went through a period of time where once it became the official religion of the Roman Empire, it became very politically influential. And one could argue that we're still dealing with the ramifications of that moment in Christian history. But that led to people like St. Anthony the Hermit to flee the cities because he felt that the church had been too comfortable with power, too comfortable with affluence, too comfortable with ephemera. Yeah. And he went and set himself up as a hermit in the desert with nothing. And so the church found this spiritual renewal through people getting rid of everything and living in the desert or living in the wilderness with nothing, right? Sort of subjected to whatever they could acquire. And even then, like if they saw that people had too many books on their shelf, they were considered living ostentatiously because the money could be sold and the money given to the book could be sold and the money given to the poor. It's just to me it's an interesting thing, right? That we've got this certain segment of at least Christian culture that embraces this idea of being prepared.
Right.
When the founder of the faith is like, don't be.
Which is funny because it just brings up there's another community that's being cultivated online. That's like the polar opposite of, EDC, preparedness, prepping. That's minimalism.
Right, yeah.
How to live with as little as possible.
Yeah.
Which, which could be argued sort of sprout up, coming from millennials growing up in a post-recession world, right? Where we had to kind of like, we had to like, I think millennials are going to be sort of known for being more minimalist than extravagant because they're growing up in that kind of culture. And like, I mean, I don't know. I think like Dana Carvey even said like in his stand-up that like, I like millennials because they're all about like living small and working small.
Yeah.
Like you're okay with just riding a bike to work. You don't need the BMW.
I will say there was an interesting thing that was brought up in the beginning stage of this pandemic, which was that the pandemic sort of revealed that minimalism, or at least that kind of minimalism that people have been living with, is its own type of affluence.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Because you can afford to not have supplies, right? Like but it's like based on this idea that, right, like the axiom of what's his name? Josh. Kane is really into minimalism. You wouldn't know it from our house because our boys seem to accumulate things and leave them everywhere. But Josh, whatever his name is, he was on Rob Bell's podcast. Anyway, he's sort of the godfather of the movement, and one of his axiom is like, if you can replace an item in 20 minutes or for $20, you should be able to get rid of it.
Right.
And that, you think about it, $20 means a lot to a poor person.
Is it Joshua Becker?
That's it, Becker. Thank you. I really wanted to say Josh Groban for some reason. Yeah, Joshua Becker. And you think about it though, like $20, 20 minutes. If you're poor, those are, that's not something you have, the ability to, if you're working 2 to 3 jobs and.
Because, minimalism is another place that has a subreddit where people post pictures of their minimalist homes. Yeah. And it's another way to, accumulate the social capital, aka
right, that's why
internet points.
Yeah, that's why I'm I think the better mentality is like enough, right? And that's gonna be subjective. Enough is not something that you can't really create a culture around enough, right?
We're gonna start it.
Yeah, like let me post a photo online of like, look at this, like
this is a normal guy's house, like it's just a normal house.
Yeah, it's sort of the normcore version of all this.
Yeah.
Right, like enough, you gotta, enough, right? And then that also raises this, because you can't really build status around enough, right? Because with the concept of enough then raises the deal about what people who don't have enough.
Yeah.
And so how do you, right? Because like minimalism, right? Like the idea is like, well, anybody can be minimalist, right? Like the homeless guy is minimalist.
Yeah.
I will say the minimalism thing is something I did struggle with a little bit when I was working at a church full of homeless people in Washington, D.C.
Really?
Because I had this conversation with a homeless guy once. I wasn't hungry. Like they have a breakfast, and we were expected to sort of grab a plate of food and have breakfast with the homeless folks. And so I one morning I just wasn't feeling all that hungry, so I was like, I'll just grab a cup of coffee and sit with some guys. And so I just grabbed a cup of coffee and I sat down at the table. And this guy across from me was like, "You don't got no food?" And I said, "I just wasn't feeling it today. I just wanted some coffee." And he was like, "Well, you could at least got the plate of food and shared it with us." And I was like, and that's when I started to think about, oh, the fact that I could choose to not have a meal right now,
right,
was sort of its own type of privilege. And it was a bizarre own form of selfishness too, because it was like, well, this is all I need. There wasn't much thought about what these guys need, which gets back to the point you were making about the whole prepper culture.
And preparedness, preppers, it's even starting to spread a little within the leftist communities. But what's interesting about it is they're trying to figure out how to make it available to their community and not just me. Because that's what's going to differentiate them, the two cultures, right? Two subcultures.
Right.
And that's interesting because there are leftist gun cultures, and they definitely say, like, buy as many guns as you want. These are the 6 guns you should have. Also, you should be lending them out to your neighbors. Instead of, like, don't let anyone take them, For when the revolution comes, you and your neighbors will all be armed.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about, right? Like there's almost like there's an element to, like, almost like what you saw like street gangs do in places like Compton and stuff in the 80s and 90s, right? Yeah. Where being a gang was partly due to the fact that if the police showed up, it was to abuse power. It wasn't, just to respond to a bad, right? So there's a lot of the street gangs started as a way to, like, sort of look after their community and take care of their community, right? Of course, right. Will to power and other things get involved with that, and it becomes a much more ugly situation. But when you look at, like, neighborhoods that are largely either abused or ignored by the police, that mindset of what we have to do, what we have to do to take care of ourselves, right? That makes sense. Like Tupac says in Changes, right? We got to do what we got to do to survive, right? We got to look after each other. And so, like, I get that. I mean, I get that. I have issues as a pacifist with the idea of any kind of gun ownership. It sort of feels like,
well, I'm using guns as an example.
You're quitting smoking, but you keep a pack in the closet just in case. Like, there's something defeatist about that. But
I mean, I'm using guns as just sort of an example. There's also, I mean, like
you said, it's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, there's if you are interested, by the way, you're listening, you're interested, there is a great blog called The Prepared, and it is about sort of that sort of preparedness, but it's not like a crazy right wing. These are not insane people, and trust me, I've been all over this culture for the past few months. I know who the crazies are, I know who the normals are, and the prepared is cool because it's all about how to be prepared, but also prepared for the people around you, like your neighbors and stuff. Like, there's whole articles on how to, like, pickle things, like how to make pickled foods and stuff, or like how to store grains and things like that. And it's all, again, it's not so you can survive; it's so that your community survives. Whatever.
Well, and
happens.
this is right, and this is right. This is. I've been kind of thinking a lot lately, ever since the pandemic, about how this sort of stuff has exposed the problems inherent with our industrialized society, and
there's not enough stuff.
Yeah, well, and like how our agrarian society in some ways was better.
Yeah. Because
in an agrarian society, or I mean, you could even have it in an urban society too. It doesn't have to be agrarian, but like in a sort of pre-industrial or whatever society, the idea that you would share, like, you would pickle a bunch of stuff and share it with your neighbors. Like, that's like I've been really exposed to how I just don't have those muscles, since I moved here, because Hawaii is a very sharing culture.
Yeah.
And it's gift giving and reciprocative culture, and I'm still trying to get into that rhythm. But like we live in a duplex, and so our neighbors, who are this young couple, they don't have a lot of money, and they live right next door to us, And they regularly, like, they come from the grocery store and they're like, oh, hey, we saw this stuff and thought your boys might like it. Here you go. Here's some, like, sweets for your kids. Or, you know, we thought of you. We know how much you like, you know, papaya. So here's some extra papaya for you, or whatever. And, like, a lot of people, when it comes to fruit and stuff, they don't buy it in the grocery store because their neighbors have fruit trees and they share their fruit with each other. And,
right.
you know, so it's very interesting coming from a very, you know, very materialistic.
It's very anarchist in a way.
Yeah. Well, and that's the kind of anarchy that I think I'm very attracted to, is the communitarian anarchy. You know, basically like this idea, like communitarian politics, by the way, is something I find very fascinating. I've been very interested in them for a while, right? Mm-hmm. Instead, you know, as opposed to libertarian politics, which holds up the individual as a sovereign entity.
Right.
You know, the sovereignty of a community, I think, is a much better approach to it.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so, yeah. By the way, there is a communitarian blog. They lean a little right from time to time, but there is a communitarian blog called Front Porch Republic that's kind of interesting.
Nice.
But yeah.
Well, I think we're kind of getting into the end of it, but I have an interesting point I want to make that we haven't brought up yet, which is that I've noticed, like I said, I have spreadsheets of stuff that I want, you know, and a lot of that comes with just me. Like I don't really have a lot, to be honest. I live with my parents and my aunt and my uncle on our farm. So like a lot of, when I say I have spreadsheets of stuff I want, it's actually like pretty basic stuff that like an individual would own if they had their own home. So like, don't think I'm being like some like, you know, window shopper. I need all the best fancy stuff. That's definitely not who I am at all. But like I said, I have spreadsheets of stuff, and I found out all of this by going to subreddits, by going to YouTube channels, by going to blogs, whatever. And the thing that I realized through all of this is that like commercials are obsolete now. Mm-hmm. Because it's almost as if like I advertised to myself. Like I assessed like what my needs are, demand, aka demand, and I went looking for the supply. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I just think it's really interesting because like we now advertise to each other. That's what the future of the internet is, and like all these YouTube channels I find and stuff, it's all basically like infomercials. Yeah, well,
it's rooted in word of mouth anymore, which I think is healthier. I mean, I don't like I really get annoyed when I see, you know, ad partnerships with, you know, corporate sponsorships with like Instagram accounts and like,
right,
you know, and I see like there's an Instagram account I really like called Middle Class Fancy, but they have a sponsorship with Bud Light, and Bud Light puts the worst comments that's like so cloying and insistent and obviously trying, you know, but like that whole thing of, you know, brands are not your friends, right? Like there's that piece that's annoying, but I think of so there was a story recently about this woman who plays like a character for AT&T commercials. She's sort of like the Flo of AT&T commercials.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know her name, but
yeah, I saw the story about it, and it was on my news app, and it was there because she's apparently been dealing with like very like sexual comments made at her.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
People like fetishizing her character and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I saw like which
is what happened to Flo.
Right. But it was like CBS News, like a major news organization, like reporting on this. And so I was just like curious. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, who is this? Because this was a thing for me. It was like, who is this? And it mentioned that her character first showed up in AT&T commercials in 2013. And I realized that I had no idea who this person was. I had never seen this character. I'd never seen a single commercial with this person. That's because in 2013, Kana and I made the decision that we would do away with cable and we would only do paid streaming platforms. And especially we budgeted to make sure that we could afford them so that we could pay for them and not have to see ads. Mm-hmm. And so I realized I have not seen a television commercial really since 2013. And I'm not I'm not that
Not
rare
missing
of a
anything.
person, right? A lot of people are doing this now, right?
Yeah.
And I have I've been mentioned in the podcast before. I have like ad blockers and all kinds of stuff on my computers, and so like I think you're right. Like we've sort of realized that commercials and advertising, it's just annoying. It doesn't work, and especially since we've tried to turn TV commercials into their own form of entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've had a question being asked of me from someone who's like, "Hey, you ever see this commercial?" As though it's like a pop culture reference,
Right.
and I always feel like I'm like, "Oh no, I haven't seen that one," because I don't want to be smug, being like, "Well,
I don't run
we
a television.
put cable back in 2013, and I haven't seen a commercial in 20 years."
Yeah.
You know, it's.
I saw that on a dating profile recently, by the way. I don't think I've ever been more turned off in my life. Someone put in a dating profile that I was looking at that they don't own a television, and I was like, just shut up.
Oh, those people. They've always been those people.
It is not 2006 anymore. Come on, that's not impressive anymore.
Well, and that was impressive in like '99.
Yeah.
Right?
When you had
Before,
must-see
it's like,
TV, right? Yeah.
it almost makes me think of, because it's like, I don't own a TV, but I have a phone. I have a computer. Like it kind of makes me think of the character of Kunu in Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
Where he's like telling Peter, like they're out in the water, and he's like, yeah, I haven't. He's like, I was like, I stopped wearing a watch as soon as I moved here, and he's like, oh wow, man. Like, and he's like, yeah, my phone has like the little like clock on it.
Oh god, I love Kunu.
So,
well, it's funny because even though there's no, even though, like I said, the advertising didn't really help me accumulate the stuff that I need, it doesn't stop corporations from trying to market. And I think what's hilarious about how EDC has evolved from people just sharing what's in their pockets, where you and you just like, oh, that's just like that's what an engineer carries, or that's what a journalist carries, to this homogenized EDC because of law enforcement and military cultures sort of finding their place there. Now we have EDC companies selling EDC products. We have EDC knives. It's not just a regular flashlight, it's an EDC flashlight. It's not just a regular wallet, it's an EDC wallet, which this is a whole wallet to use. It's not just a regular bag, it's an EDC bag. And now my favorite thing to come out of it has all accumulated to one product that I have to own, and that is the EDC holster.
You've shown me this thing. That's the thing that like holds like pepper spray.
It holds the knife. It holds the flashlight, and I think they all come different kinds, but it mostly is like for like pin, flashlight, and knife, I think. And I think that's probably going to be the photo for this episode is the picture of the EDC holster, because JP wants one.
We should.
That's the modern day pocket protector, right?
What we should do is me and Matt should all we should do an EDC photo of the stuff we carry and put that on our Instagram.
That'd be fun. I could do that. Like I do have stuff I carry with me every day now. It's just not very there's not an Olight flashlight in there or anything. I have my Walmart flashlight.
Yeah. I mean, I've got my briefcase that I carry my stuff in, but I've also got I've got a fanny pack that I wear as a sling.
Heck yeah, Yeah, that's the thing, like how the words have changed. It's not a fanny pack anymore, it's a sling.
Yeah. My wife calls it a merce.
Yeah. Because that's what they called it when a guy with a messenger bag had a man purse. No, it's a satchel.
Well, it's like, okay, so
here we go.
I'm going to give you a little my own EDC thing here.
Okay, cool. All right.
So this is my Herschel briefcase.
Which is cool. I like Herschel. That's a cool company.
So this,
it's fancy.
Not to be the hipster before it was cool kind of person, but I did acquire this before they were selling Herschel stuff in like Nordstrom. Yeah. But I'm actually not like, ooh, gross, everybody gets it. I actually think that it's great that a very well-made product is now becoming very popular, and so many of the kids at the high school I used to work at had Herschel backpacks. But no, I got this back when they were still an online-only manufacturer. But I bought this, one, because I love cobalt blue. It's one of my favorite colors, and it's got cool red stripe detailing in there. It's got a laptop bag. It's got a special iPad slot that's got like microfiber to protect it. It's got, all the little zippers and,
That's what I like. I like bags that are organized, not like just an open black hole.
But here's that's what I love about it. It's a well-designed, well-made bag, really thought through. But the biggest selling point to me for this bag was this pocket right there.
Nice.
So I could put my phone in it.
Yeah.
And I did that because phones started getting so big, and I didn't like having the big old block on my thigh. And I was also concerned about like radiation and stuff, having it like constantly in contact with my body.
Yeah.
And so I thought about, well, I'll just start keeping it in my briefcase instead of carrying it with me everywhere. Whatever. And so I got the bag for that. And then, so it just goes in my car, and because, any more cars have Bluetooth connectivity, so I don't even have to bring the phone out for anything. It's just all, contained. Yeah. Then on top of that, in my line of work, I carry so many keys.
Yeah.
Just so many keys. And so, like, I hate, the bulge of keys on your thigh, but also, like, walking and hearing the rattle. I mean, you remember me in college. I was the guy with the carabiner with my keys on my belt loop.
Yeah.
And I used to tuck it into my back pocket so you didn't have to hear the rattle of keys. And so, like, so the bag is mostly for that kind of thing. So now I've shrunk that all down to my fanny pack satchel thing where, I keep my wallet in there. Because also I was concerned about, like, back pain from having too thick of a wallet. So I have a nice thin Herschel wallet.
You got to look into the key bar.
I've seen the key bar.
Yeah. That's an EDC classic right there, the key bar.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's what gets me is, first of all, this is totally us men experiencing what they've done to women for decades.
Totally. Yes. I agree with that 100%.
Right. Because like they were like, because what did they do to women? Right. They're like, we're going to give you clothes, but no pockets.
Accessorize.
But we're going to expect you to have to carry a bunch of junk with you. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And some of it's by virtue of, like biology, right? You got to carry, feminine products, right? But then, of course, makeup became a thing. You got to carry your makeup with you. And then you got to have money, and you've got to have, all that kind of stuff. I remember my mom always having, this big purse. And, of course, mom's got candy in there, and she's got, all kinds of stuff she can pull out. So, like, women have
a daily planner, perhaps?
Women have been, like, prepped, right? Because their purse allows them to always be prepared, right? And so, like, that's the whole thing. Mama is always prepared. Mom's always got something in her purse, right? Like
tons of tissues, just filled to the brim with tissues. Right? Loose tissues.
Right? And so, like, but then how hilarious is patriarchy, where we then made fun of that?
Yeah.
Like, if a man tried to be like, what, I just want to be prepared. Like, oh, you got a purse. I mean, Seinfeld also has a whole episode about the man purse, the merce.
Yeah.
And, or the European carry-all, as they call it.
Yeah.
And so, like, so we've mocked people for this. But then somewhere along the way, we were like, actually,
yeah,
makes a lot of sense. And do you know who did it?
Who?
The Japanese.
You think so?
Seriously, because the people that I've always seen, all the men that I've always seen carrying like little bags and stuff, have always been like Chinese, Japanese, Korean people, right? And I'm saying the Japanese specifically because of the amount of rail travel that is involved in Japan.
Oh, of course, yeah.
People use trains so much that it just seems logical to me that Japanese men would be the ones who came up with the idea of, well, I got to carry a bunch of stuff because I'm going to be on the train and walking around town and stuff, so I need to have stuff on me. And so,
and in China, they're all bicycling everywhere, yeah.
Yeah, and trying to bike, and and like initially the fanny pack, but then they started cross-body wearing the fanny pack. Mm-hmm. And when I would go to Disney, that's who I would see with all kinds of cool little bags with just enough, right? Getting back to that, was always the Japanese tourists. Right. And like I followed this one dude around at Epcot because I was trying to figure out where his bag came. He had the coolest bag, and I could never get the label, figure out who it was, and I'm so upset that I didn't find out what that bag was because it was the coolest bag I've ever seen.
That's funny.
Yeah,
you should have just asked him. Excuse me,
I guess
that bag rules. Can I take a picture of it?
It was like 3 or 4 years ago. I was very insecure about this sort of stuff.
It's all right.
Now I want to carry, but
yeah.
Anyway, I got my Uniqlo purse now, and my key on my Kia is, it's a wireless entry car, so I just have to keep the bag on me. Open the car, put my phone in it, keep my wallet in it. Just to show, I'm a dad of an 8-week-old baby at this point. I got a diaper in there. I've got wipes. I've got my mask, because that's the other thing, right? The masks. I've also got a spare mask in the event that,
That's good.
Yeah.
Can I show you one of my prized possessions?
Sure.
My hand sanitizer. I bought a big bottle of hand sanitizer when there was you couldn't buy it anywhere, because a local dispensary made their own hand sanitizer and started selling it locally. And but the funny thing is, because it came from a whiskey dispensary, it came in a plastic whiskey bottle, and so applying liquid hand sanitizer, it's not like the gel, it's just like water basically. Right. So applying, it looked like I was in, if I did it in a car, it looked like I was about to take a swig of whiskey and just poured it on my hands. That became a hassle. So I went to Walmart and I bought a spray bottle, as you see here, and I just fill it every now and then, and it's a nice little spray of hand sanitizer. And it smells, it's so funny because dispensary hand sanitizer smells like rum. It has a buttery alcohol smell to it.
It's better. It's probably got residual from the old alcohol in there, but it's also basically just overproof booze.
Yeah, well, it also has hydrogen peroxide in it, so you can't drink it.
Right.
So don't do that. But no, that's this little thing. It was the happiest day of my life when I did this. By the way, I felt so clever. I'm like, take that, COVID.
So here's mine. Here it is. I've got things. I got a spare band for my watch.
There you go.
So that, because being where I'm at, I can just throw one of those surfboards in my car and go to the beach, and that way I have a waterproof band for my watch because I can swap out the band.
Yeah.
Just so many keys. Just so many keys. Just so many. A pen and my hand sanitizer, which is Episcopal Church branded.
Nice. Okay. Holy hand sanitizer.
And then it has it's got some kind of perfume in it. I'm not a huge fan of it, but when I need it, I need it. But no, you showed the thing you're most proud of. You showed the thing you're most proud of. Here's what I'm proud of. My Diocese of Southeast Florida branded metal reusable straws.
Ooh.
I've got my straight one. I've got my curved one. And this one I'm really proud of. I just bought it the other day. My boba straw.
That's amazing.
And I have all the cleaners so I can rinse them out.
Oh, that's great. That's so good. Now I want those straws.
Yeah.
I gotta get some of those.
$3 for the metal boba straw. And I don't currently have it in here, I just realized, but I also have a little kit that has fork, knife, spoon, and chopsticks.
Ooh.
That goes in a package that I can keep
That's
in
cool.
here so that I can have utensils anytime I need them.
Oh yeah, we're definitely gonna do some Instagram posts.
Yeah.
I wish Matt were here because he really wanted to talk about this subject because
this was his idea.
I know. I mean, yeah, and he finally got the bag that he and I were talking about, and I want it so bad, and I was wanting him to show it off because I wanted to see it. The commuter pack, it looks great. It has a little hole between one of the modular pockets on the outside in the bag, so you can put a power bank in there and hook your phone up to it through the wall of the bag. It's so cool, and it comes with a third, a second strap that you can use if you're actually commuting, so it doesn't fall right over if you're on your bike. Super cool.
I had an Osprey messenger bag that had that.
Nice. But yeah, I want it so bad. But no, he didn't make it. So
is there there's something just so satisfying about a well-designed product.
Totally. Yes,
right?
Especially ones that last forever.
Right.
Which is so rare.
The thought of right, again, designing a pouch that has little holes so that you can run a power bank.
Yeah.
Like just those kinds of little touches, right? Like on this Herschel bag, the fact that there is a little pouch big enough for a phone, and it doesn't stick out; it goes all the way in. Like, that's such a great little.
It is great
little detail. Mm-hmm. You know, I love it.
Cool. Well, I think we've reached the end, and
we have.
Unfortunately, Matt's not going to be here, which means the next episode he has a lot to say. We should probably give him a little spot to kind of tell his little piece, because he has an interesting take on it too, since he's law enforcement. Did I just get a...
Right.
There he is. He just messaged us on Signal.
Oh, I didn't get it yet. By the way, shout out to Signal.
Yeah, we're hackers now, apparently, right? We've gone underground. We're off the grid, off the digital grid.
Us and Melania Trump, apparently.
Huh?
I said us and Melania Trump.
Oh, is she on there too? That's cool.
There was a big deal about the fact that I saw yesterday that there was a story about they found that she was using private email servers and everything, and including communicating with people on Signal.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about her emails, huh?
Yeah, for real. Ugh, don't get me started, dude. Okay, so, well, that's about it. I want to thank Father Chuck for being here.
You're welcome.
And to everybody else, thank you so much for listening and watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Join us again next time. Have a wonderful week. Good journey.
Good journey.